since they canceled everything, let's argue. Now, I've been on the internet researching lists and looking for things to do since I got a lot of free time during this quarantine. And I have to ask this one question. Who is the greatest running back of all time? Now, to Lions fans, the answer is and always will be Barry Sanders. Born in 1968 in Wichita, Kansas, the 5'8" running back would be a late bloomer. It would be the fourth game of his senior season where Sanders would see his first start, and then he would be off to the races. He would rush for 1,417 yards in 7 games, earning All-State honors. He would then be recruited by Oklahoma State, where he would be a backup to Thurman Thomas. In limited action as a running back, Barry would rush for 928 yards and 11 touchdowns in his freshman and sophomore year. He would also shine as a kick returner, averaging 31 yards per return and adding 2 touchdowns. It was in 1998 when Barry Sanders would put the entire football world on notice. Sanders turned in what some would call the single greatest season in the history of college football. That year, Sanders set the single season record for rushing yards and rushing touchdowns, and points scored, and touchdowns from scrimmage, and yards from scrimmage. While being the feature back wasn't enough, Barry would still be the team's primary return specialist, adding 516 yards and a touchdown. He rushed for over 300 yards 4 times while averaging 7.6 yards per carry and over 200 yards per game. He topped off his senior season with a 222-yard, 5-touchdown performance in the 1988 Holiday Bowl. The Heisman Trophy was a no-brainer that year, and Barry would forego his senior season for the NFL Draft. He was drafted 3rd overall by the Detroit Lions. The greatest coach in Lions history, Wayne Fontes, was an advocate for drafting Sanders, while management wanted to take another Sanders, Deion. In his first season, Barry Sanders immediately made an impact. He rushed for 1,470 yards and 14 touchdowns. Barry brought home the Offensive Rookie of the Year award, and he was named a first-team All-Pro. He was also selected for a Pro Bowl. Barry would carry the Lions, and I mean that literally. Like, they're that bad. Imagine how bad you think the Lions are, then imagine being a Lions fan and watching Barry Sanders waste his career for quite possibly the sorriest franchise in the history of sports. I digress though. Barry would carry the Lions to the playoffs 5 times in his career, leading the team to 2 Central Division titles in 1991 and 1993. Yeah, the Lions won 12 games before. Big shocker, right? In 1994, Barry rushed for 1,883 yards. That would turn into an Offensive Player of the Year award. In the playoffs, the Lions would lose to Green Bay at Lambeau Field 12-16. In 1995, Barry rushed for 1,500 yards. The Lions lost to the Eagles 37-58. In 1997, Barry had his greatest season yet. He became the 3rd running back in the 2,000 yards club. Look, this is how good Barry's 2,000-yard season was. After the first 2 games, he had 25 carries for 53 yards. He would then reel off 14 straight games of 100 yards or more. In that span, he only rushed for 200 yards twice.
Barry cut back. Now he's got it. 50, 40, 30. Look out. Right side 20, 15 to the 10, to the 5.
He would win Offensive Player of the Year and a share of the 1997 Most Valuable Player award with Brett Favre. The Lions would face the Tampa. They lost. That's what I'm going to say. They lost. Barry would rush for 1,491 yards in his final season in 1998. He won 4 rushing titles and 1 touchdown title. He was an All-Pro and a Pro Bowler every year. He was a 2-time Offensive Player of the Year, and in 1997, he was named NFL MVP after becoming just the 3rd player in NFL history to record a 2,000-yard rushing season. Look, we all know in that morning that Barry faxed in his retirement papers that he was the greatest running back of all time. At the time of his retirement, he had 15,269 career rushing yards. That was just 1,457 yards behind the late great Walter Payton. Walter Payton had played 13 seasons. Barry had only played 10. The record was in jeopardy. Walter Payton was one of the greatest running backs of all time, but he wasn't better than Barry. Emmitt Smith would go on to break Payton's record, but he wasn't better than Barry. You can mention Adrian Peterson, Frank Gore, and many others, but as all Lions fans know, they weren't better than Barry Sanders. He was graceful and elusive. He was humble. The man who embodied the quote, "When you get inside the end zone, act like you've been there before." Nobody broke more ankles, broke more tackles, eluded more defenders, and created highlights more than number 20. 8 defenders in the box be damned. They weren't better than the greatest running back of all time, Barry Sanders. Also, can we like have this one? Like, we don't win Super Bowls or playoff games. Can we just have this one? Please.